Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for September 24th, 2021. I'm Benji Fisher, sharing my screen and moderating. And also on the meeting, unfortunately, I can't see the list, so I hope I'm not missing anyone. But Thomas Howell, Aaron McHale, Ravi Shankar, Paolo CS, I'm afraid I can't remember your last name, and Christina Chumias. Am I missing anyone?
No.
No, I think.
Okay. So I guess several issues have been suggested on Slack or on the meeting issues for our review. Incorrect behavior for block page visibility and hide show block page visibility, negate form element if page's form element is/is not empty. I think those are two that were suggested by Derek or DWW, and I think those are two different approaches to the same problem. So we could look at those two and decide which one we like. And then another pair of issues also suggested by Derek are add permissions to the update module to hide warnings or update notification messages as an option in settings. Sorry, did someone want to say something?
Yeah, I see that you also added the project messaging to get it into core. I mean, I've reviewed that issue, so I could help explaining it a little bit if it's necessary, and we got here. But I think the other ones were actually proposed previous to this, so whatever you want to do.
I think Hestenet requested the project messaging channel in core 2 or 3 weeks ago in Slack.
Okay.
So I think that's actually the longest standing request here.
Okay.
You know, shortly before the meeting, I was updating this issue, trying to keep track of things, requests that we haven't had a chance to look at yet. And the last thing is new translations for moderated nodes are not created in the initial workflow state. But I'd kind of like to look at the project messaging channel, and if Christina, if you can walk us through that, that would be great. So shall I open up that?
Yeah, that could be great.
Okay, and for the recording, this is issue 3206643. And I will stop talking and you tell me when to scroll.
Okay, so this happened like I don't know, a lot of months ago. We started like the idea from the project messaging. I'm not sure what's going to be the final name chosen, but basically this is the idea for this is to have a way to get to final users or site users Drupal communications, like general Drupal communications, like blog posts from Drupal.org or something like that. And the idea is to add an item. I think you can just go a little bit further, and there's going to be some, yeah, here, screenshots. So the idea is to have this new item on the toolbar at the top, on the top right here. And basically this is going to show probably DrupalCon or I don't know, messages. I'm not sure exactly about the API and how, what's the creation of this content, but this is going to come from an API or something like that. Well, from Drupal.org, and basically, yeah, I don't know what else. I mean, I think there's a discussion about using settings tray or using dialogue here or some other things, but those are more technical issues. Well, not actually a good thing to discuss here. So basically the state right now for the issue is that they moved it into they were working on a country project, and they the discussion is to move it into a stable, probably stable module directly into Drupal core. And yeah, so this is already working. I don't have it set up on my local, but this is already working. It's just that a few discussions are going on the issue itself. One is the way this has to appear, because the design right now show only how it's going to look like in here, but I think below that at the one of the final I think I put a GIF here. You can see how it's actually working with the code in there right now. One of the last messages at the bottom of the issue is going to show how it looks right now and how it's behaving right now. Yeah, a little bit, yeah, here. Yeah, there's just a little bit at the top of my bottom, my comment, sorry. There is the GIF. If you could put the GIF, yeah, just a little bit, scroll up. Yeah, here. So this is how it looks right now, how it's working right now. It's basically in here. If you click, this open, and then I think it's using settings tray or something like that. And well, on my side, from my what I said here is basically UI things, because these designs were done by Ana Barcelona like at the beginning when we were still designing Claro, and we had a lot of things that we removed, and several feedback that I'm giving here is like using the same styles for Claro. I mean, if they are adding styles for this nouns project, they should either work with 7 or work with Claro, and the ones that they are implementing right now, they don't do neither, because they are based on old designs for Claro. And yeah, I don't know, probably we want to, now that you've seen it working, we want to review what are they actually looking for, the kind of feedback that they are looking for, and that's at the top of on the summary, because the summary is pretty well explained.
So let's go through the proposed resolution. It's been developed as part of Contrib. It has the following guidelines: follow existing core patterns where possible, reuse existing visual display and layout from the settings tray, provide a notification icon in the primary toolbar, and consume a feed from Drupal.org. And some features were decided not in scope: configurable endpoints for multiple feeds, and an API for extensibility by other modules. There are several remaining tasks. One of them is usability review. Data model changes, security considerations, release note snippets. I don't see any specific usability questions here in the summary.
Yeah, probably they are just posting here like for the, well, I think we discussed this a few times already over the last months, but probably this is the first time that they have something already working. So I guess they are more like because everything that I said, they've been opening issues for that. So they are actually super open to any kind of feedback, I would say. So yeah, if anybody has any thought or question, or I can try to answer whatever I know, or otherwise we can just post it on the issue.
I see, Aaron, you commented a couple of weeks ago, week and a half ago.
Yep. Yeah, and there was some. So I've been basically completely out of the loop the last week with partly with moving house and also with work stuff. So I know there's probably been some additional discussion around the styling, but essentially my point was that I was concerned about sort of introducing a lot of additional custom CSS, which I know Christina you picked up on, and see if we could. I know, for instance, your work around the sort of Drupal design system, so hopefully that can be integrated in as much as possible here.
Sorry for joining so late. This is Official. I saw this thing and I thought the interface they chose or how they want to display things, I thought can overcomplicate what we're trying to achieve. And I think that's part of the extra CSS and everything that we've seen.
Yeah, and I know there was some concern around, and sorry, I don't know if some of this has been already covered because I had to dip away because someone had came to the door. But an additional concern that had been raised was around just the sort of the idea of like, you know, the CSS might look different in some other themes. So the more custom CSS we have, the more we have to kind of try and maintain sort of compatibility between different themes and I think until we have, until we can start to make use of some of the more cutting edge features in HTML5, like sort of shadow DOMs, for instance, then I think we're really limited in how much custom CSS we can reliably introduce with this.
So that doesn't seem to me like a usability issue. So I'm not sure that's what we should be discussing at this meeting. I mean, is it discoverable? Do you understand how to interact with it? In a sense, the whole project is about discoverability of what's going on in the community. I guess based on this this little recording that's Christina provided, does anyone see any usability issues here? Is the fact that the rest of the page is getting pushed over when the settings tray opens, is that a problem? Are the actions clear?
Yeah, I don't know if it falls under usability, but that's what I thought. The whole move of the page is a big shift for. I would expect usually clicking on something, a drop down to show up, not necessarily changing the whole layout of the page.
So the idea here is that they are reusing a pattern already in there. So I guess this is the one that was closer because this is being used by Layout Builder. So I'm not sure which other pattern they could use if they don't use this one.
Sorry, I don't have many opinions on the usability. I would not handle this type of information in this fashion. I question having this in this place when this is like what is the intended audience of announcements? It goes into a pretty global place, and to me, this is a feature of a very specific class of user, administrator, or site builder. And so I question why it would even go where it's going.
Yeah, probably that's That's a really good question and really valid question. I think though that this is more a project manager thing, probably like more this decision about, although I'm pretty sure any suggestions we can make based on this can be.
Right. It's just, to me, like anything that I'm adding to the overall interface is usually about the site itself. Community announcements coming from Drupal are not anything about the site itself.
Well, this is the admin toolbar. This is not something that's going to be seen by random visitors to the site.
Right. I'm not talking even about random visitors, though. I've had things added to the, like, calling it the admin toolbar for me is an overloaded term, because I don't know how many sites I've seen that use this solely as the administrative role bar. I've seen this bar used time and again for people with super user abilities and other internally facing or external power user facing individuals, at least in the sites that I've worked with. It feels wrong. I understand it's about trying to get communication out there. But to me, this, and again, like, this is probably not the right place, but it's hard to view this from usability. Is it findable? Like, it's not where I would want to find it. I would want to find it in a space that was purely the code owner, the person who's going to be managing the building of the site. It's something highly targeted. If it was, again, what they're not doing as part of this, I would see it as more of a universal site improvement, as in improving everything. But it's targeted at such a very specific user group. I would disable this in every site I built. It doesn't belong where it is.
So Thomas, I don't necessarily disagree. I think those are some really valid points. I wonder if just to so I better understand what you're saying, because I'm curious. My assumption is that this will have some kind of permissions attached to it, so that you could, restrict it to when it's enabled, restrict this interface to certain roles. Maybe the administrator role only, because maybe they're the only concerned user. Like your example just there, disabling it on sites. I'm thinking, someone who is someone who is even a sort of a site builder on their own, and maybe an agency building sites, like they probably wouldn't, they maybe not have this enabled in all their sites. But does the fact, if this had a permission associated with it, would that sort of make that more acceptable from your perspective?
It would certainly be acceptable, and I don't have a huge problem with this. It just seems like it's handling. It's a communication issue. The purpose of it is to communicate to the user, and the user would want to find, whoever reads this needs to be the audience that wants to read messages from the Drupal community. Just putting something in that place is just such a weird, like, I worry about it confusing people who thinks it can do more other things than what it does. Announcements would feel like it's a tool for making announcements. It's almost like a MOTD, a message of the day from the website, site builder or administrator to everyone else in the site. I would misconstrue the purpose of the module if I was new to Drupal. That would be my fear. I can't guarantee it without actually talking to people who've never used Drupal before, but it feels very much like what I consider a Drupalism. We're getting back on the Drupal island. We're putting Drupal stuff there. We're telling, like, this is something, if I were using WordPress or another site, I would just disable it, because that's not the place I'd want to see it if I were using any other new software for the first time.
Don't forget, a lot of the sample screenshots, I guess if I scroll up to the top, suggest it will be used for security releases. And that is information that is important for the site administrator to know.
Isn't that what the updates module already does? And we have multiple other places for that messaging.
So that's actually one of my my points. That actually, what was the name of the thing that they were presenting a few days ago? It was updates module or out updates.
The
auto
automatic updates module is
Yeah.
what we looked at 1 or 2 meetings ago.
Yeah. So my concern here is conflicting elements, like not just the items on the toolbar itself, but confusing like two things that could actually bring you the same information, or I don't know, kind of. I'm not really sure about. I'm more concerned about the conflict the two of them might have. Together with what Thomas is saying about the confusion that it can bring.
Oh,
Just
Thomas, you bring up WordPress for comparison, and don't they already have something like this? When you log in as a WordPress administrator, don't you automatically see, without the option to get rid of it, some messages from WordPress about upcoming conferences and releases and so forth?
I haven't touched WordPress in 7 years, so it's very, very likely. And it would make me upset if I was using new software and I couldn't disable it. I'm just not a big fan of adding cruft in. Also, this assumes that somebody at Drupal, at the Drupal org, the source, this is essentially bringing content into your site from an external source, and the community has to then commit to managing that sort. Like there's just all of these, and it's usability to me because this is how I would use this, but I don't know if it's usability in a strict sense of, is it findable? Are the fonts right? Is the wording right? So I don't want to waste any more of our time. This just feels like a step back. If what we're trying to do is ensure good messaging around updates and security. Like it's to me, if that's what we're doing, we want to still again look at what is your code base versus what's there, not just random messaging, because there are just I don't know. I mean, maybe the intention is to warn someone that there will be a security update coming, like we've done in the past for Drupal-geddon and stuff like that. When like maybe this is important, but I just am not sure that I would look to the upper right-hand corner for a section called announcements and view that as the place where I'm going to be getting that information.
Okay, so a few points of information. One, it is a module, so yes, you can disable it if you don't like it. Two, I checked the current contrib version of the module, and indeed, it does define a specific permission for viewing the announcements, so you can target it at just the user roles that are appropriate. Is there overlap with the updates module? The updates module only gives you notifications when the security release has been released. And there are occasional cases like Drupal-geddon where a public service announcement is made in advance of that release, saying, you know, there's a big security release coming up in a few days. So the updates module does not have a mechanism for giving that advance notice. I think that's all I have to say.
yeah, really good point.
I seem to remember, and I may be misremembering something, and maybe this is what it turned into, but there was some discussion quite a while back about, for that specific example of us being able to use a feed to send out a very specific, like PSA around, there's a security vulnerabilities that would have, but this would appear as a critical message in like status reports and in the admin UI and things like. Is that a different? I feel like that was a different thing to this, because I it was using different interface design, but I don't remember if anyone can remind me what that is.
I think that may be the same idea. Different iteration of the same idea.
I was reading, several things. So first, on the summary, there is a small text that says the goal of this initiative is to provide a channel for messaging about the Drupal project within the administrative interface of core. The channel will provide information about upcoming releases, new feature highlights, events like DrupalCon, and promote support of the project via association membership or other programs. I think this is more a product idea, more like they are doing this to try to reach more people rather than if it's usable or not, or it's not usable, or if it makes sense or not. I mean, I think it's more a I'm not sure if marketing idea or more like it's coming from the need to promote Drupal, I guess, with people that doesn't have any account, because actually the first paragraph says the vast majority of Drupal users do not have accounts on Drupal.org. So I think this is more a product or coming the idea more from, well, and a strategy to try to reach more people, and then we could discuss it. And because of that, I navigated to the ideas, the issue in the ideas issue, and basically one of the things, if you could go there and clicking here, yeah.
Okay, for the recording, this is issue 2940739 in the ideas issue queue. Go ahead.
Okay, so right here on the comment 27. So we discussed it a while ago, and one of the feedback that we gave to them is maybe one of the options to make it a sub-menu under the user icon. So not placing that on the first level, let's say. Or that's what I am understanding from here.
Right, so it looks like that suggestion was not taken.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that would actually release a little bit of your concerns, Thomas. What do you think?
I also shared in the Zoom chat if anyone want to look at how WordPress is doing it. And what I can see, I'm not familiar with WordPress a lot, but in the main dashboard, that's where they have WordPress events and news, but I don't see something at the main toolbar.
Yeah, I think there's I don't know if this is a use case for bringing back the dashboard that used to, I think we used to have it in like Drupal 6 or 7 or something. Because I can see where Thomas is coming from, but I think that, as Christina kind of pointed out, there's a key like desire in building this was to try and grow the community and to get people to almost sort of paraphrase Dries here, to turn people from not just takers but into makers, and to get them to engage with, you know, events in the community and things. So I guess this is one way of doing it, and I don't disagree with this in principle, but I sort of appreciate what Thomas and others have said around, is this the right implementation of that? And that I'm not sure about.
Thank you.
Offer, you joined a couple of minutes late, and you missed me saying that I'm in a particular circle of Zoom hell where I cannot open up the chat window. So could you paste that link into the Slack channel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that. Yeah, Zoom is fun. WordPress example.
And just very briefly, I agree with everything that Aaron said and what Christina said. And I would not put up a red flag and say, don't put this in. I'm just trying to express one of the problems I've had with core over the past couple of years. And I think that the organization I work for is as responsible as anyone for the growth of core, but it's just getting very large. And I don't know how many times I've spoken with someone and they said, yeah, having some feed of information on the side spoke to me. I don't know how effective it is, if that is intended as a marketing tool or as a form of inclusion, when it's a very specific audience and not intended, again, for everyone. And I know we can make it go away. So that's not the issue. And I know you can disable the module. So that's also not an issue. It just, I'm wondering if it has been shown to solve the problem that they're ostensibly trying to solve.
Right. So this, thanks to Offer, is an example of what you see by default in the WordPress dashboard. They give you this whole block of events and news.
Yeah, I'm not sure if on the toolbar on top there, is that like comments? You see 0 on the left side.
Right. I think that's site
That's,
comments.
yeah, it looks like edit comments. Okay, so this is site comments. Just to be clear that we don't have these kind of bells about messaging on the toolbar.
So I think there's something, one of the fundamental differences between Drupal and WordPress, at least in my own opinion, is that WordPress is a very, you take WordPress, you install it, you get a blog, right? You maybe, and people do all sorts of weird, wonderful things with WordPress, and I haven't tried to do them, so I'm not going to judge people for doing those things. But personally, I wouldn't do those things with WordPress, because I would use something like Drupal, because it's a much more, in my opinion at least, and in my limit, again, I must stress, very limited knowledge of WordPress's APIs, but I would say Drupal is a much more extensible and framework-like system than WordPress, or WordPress is much more, like you could build a WordPress, to me, if you were to take WordPress and say, what's the equivalent in Drupal? It would be a blogging distribution of Drupal, right? That has that stuff like specific views for blogging and all that kind of thing. But there's a thing of like Drupal core, and again, come back to something sort of Thomas hinted at, was that like, if I'm building a web application in Drupal, it might bug me that there's like things in core that are never going to be used, and it would bug me a little bit, like from my perspective, that I would never enable them. And like a module like that, and this comes back to the whole debate around like a lean core versus like maybe a more feature-rich core. But like it kind of would it annoys me slightly that no matter what I do with Drupal, there's always a module there called Forum that is never going to be enabled, but is taking up space on a SSD somewhere in a data center, right? As a developer, that bugs me a little bit. So I don't know what the answer is here, but I think there's a difference to be mindful of between what the use case for WordPress is and what the use case for Drupal is in that sense. And I don't know if that helps anything, but that's where my thought has been for the last 5 minutes.
So I'm wondering what sort of useful feedback we can leave on the issue as a result of this discussion. I guess it seems to me that the main objections are that either the whole idea is misguided or that the implementation is misguided. Am I oversimplifying things?
No, I think that's a great simplification, and I am not, if I have a vote, I would not say I think the idea is misguided. I think the implementation, which is why I brought it up during usability, or why I was responding during usability. Like, I think that if this was solved a different way, the marketing need that Christina spoke about, the fact that it could be hidden, it just feels like it belongs as more as part of a dashboard. I would expect to see it elsewhere. And if the issue is that people aren't going to, I can't remember what the page is where we have all of our notices and everything under next to reporting. But like, that would be the page where I would expect to see this kind of information. So the implementation, my vote is the implementation is problematic, not that there isn't a problem to solve, and not that, and that's why this is a usability comment.
Okay, so here's a live Drupal site. Do we have any suggestions? We don't have a dashboard in Drupal.
If you
So we
click on
can't put it
reports,
there. Where would we put it? Where does this information belong if not in a new drop down from the admin toolbar?
if you click on reports, the thing I was trying to get at is status report. Like, to me, what status report is today, this is the page that I would have expected to see these kinds of communications. Pre-warnings, and so maybe it's the fact that for a long time in all of Drupal 8 and now 9, status report has been tucked away, and you don't have any visibility of this on the admin bar. Like, you have to know to go here to find these really critical things.
But I mean, if you're going to announce like Drupal get on or something like that, this probably might be the place. But if you're going to announce next DrupalCon and where is it, it's going to be, probably this is not the place.
Is
Right,
it?
Sorry.
No, I just think since the dashboard did come up here, would we have, which for sure is much longer and more complex process, but maybe to bring it back to perhaps there is a place for a dashboard in Drupal, and this would be one of the use cases.
I love that you say that, because one of the reasons behind adding the new content editor user, the permissions was actually, apart from creating a new menu, was actually creating a dashboard. I love that you say that. But yeah, that's actually one place that I would expect that there also.
And to be clear, for me, this status report is some of the information I would expect to see on a dashboard as a non-Drupalist. Like, to me, it bothers me as someone, if I were to be new to Drupal, that the status report, which is telling critical information, is tucked away rather than something I see every time as an administrator I log in. And I would like to be able to choose, do I want to go to a dashboard or do I hide the dashboard? But to me, the messaging belongs on the dashboard, as you stated. It has other use cases. And this status report is something that I would like. This is information that, again, I don't like it hidden on a reports page. It seems to be something you have to know is here rather than a behavior where we would expect to see it elsewhere. So that's it.
And I have another question. In case there is a Drupalgeddon 3, I don't know which number we're at now, but sky is falling, should we have something that does allow it to do something that we almost never do, except it's really, really, really important?
So just to add on that, I have to go very shortly. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump in with a couple of thoughts and then I'll leave you all. But I think on that, I very distinctly remember discussions around these, like this PSA notifications thing for those very cases of like this once a year really critical vulnerability. And I think that's really important that that's a separate thing and it doesn't get confused with general community announcements and other things, because the risk is if it's tucked into the same like visual area, that then it becomes just more visual noise and it doesn't get the attention it needs. So anything like a Drupalgeddon or like a once a year really critical security update cannot be just in the same interface as DrupalCon's coming up, or that kind of stuff, because otherwise you see that far more. So you're more likely to put this interface in the area of things I don't need to pay attention to, versus when you get a big message that pops up saying like critical security update coming. Like that's something we really need to make sure we highlight to people. And I think just on the dashboard point, like I would really support the idea of even taking the status report and reimagining what the status report page is into some kind of dashboard. And you see that on WordPress, and I think there's a few different issues. There's an issue, around the sort of different reworking the administrative UI. There's an issue around sort of adding a button to the toolbar for adding items. There's issues around reworking the kind of like, the content page at the top level. And I think all of these could be partly solved or contributed to by some kind of dashboard at the top level that brings these things together in some way. So that's where, again, I would probably also expect to find this stuff. But yeah, that's kind of my final point, I think, because I have to head off. But hopefully that's something to leave you with.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, my initial thought was that putting any more information on the status report would be a bad idea, but perhaps it's not such a bad thing, because we have at the top 1 error, 1 warning, 24 checked. We have links in each of those that jumps down to the corresponding section of the page. So if we were to put another block below the general system information block, if we were to put some other dashboard-like thing there, it would not be so bad. You'd still be able to jump down to the checked section if that's what you're interested in, or to the errors or warnings, which is more likely. So I guess Thomas is suggesting that we perhaps move the status report to a dedicated item in the admin menu rather than buried in the reports menu. And then consider using that for additional information.
Right, and the announcements would then, exactly as it is today, just that would be the place that it would live. And for me, that would behaviorally be what I would expect.
And then sort of to Aaron's point that we want to avoid alarm fatigue. And if we have a bunch of ignorable messages like DrupalCon Europe is coming up, DrupalCon North America is coming up, Drupal South is coming up, if we train people to ignore those and then put our super critical security announcement in the same place, that's bad. On the other hand, if we have a moderate sized dashboard, like maybe something about the same size as general system information, maybe up to twice as large, and it says DrupalCon is coming up, and then highlighted as an error with red background and all that. Our Drupalgeddon 3 is coming. You want to update your site a week from today. That might address that objection of avoiding alarm fatigue, that we wouldn't really be mixing up the routine announcements with the critical security announcements in the same feed.
Probably that's going a little bit far from this same discussion, but I'm thinking about the so someone like me that I really hate having like a lot of red alerts on the apps on my phone. Like I hate, like, for example, when I see on my mail app like 25 messages to read or something like that. So I wonder if we are doing the correct thing, just like adding something on the UI that they have to click and open if they really don't need it. I'm not sure if that's something that should go actually on the first level. And I really like that we suggested that something like that, that placing this under another menu would actually solve this problem. Because I would expect like notifications. When I get a notification from an app, it's because I really need to take care of that, or it requires my attention for something. And yeah, it's like adding a bell with a red point in there. It's kind of, I need to do something in there. Although it's basically, I'm just saying exactly the same that you already said. It's kind of concerning. So yeah. But I'm not sure at this point if this is something we can propose or not, like moving this to somewhere else. I'm not sure if that would actually solve the need that they have to communicate this. So no idea right now what the best path forward and what feedback to give.
Well, we could keep some elements of the design, like the announcements bell is, well, this would now be the icon for the status page, or maybe we would need a different icon.
Oh yeah, that's true. Probably another icon instead of a bell.
But it would gain this little red circle in the rare circumstances where there's an important security announcement to be made. And as long as we keep it rare, I think that addresses your concern that you don't like too many alarms. So most of the time it would be sitting there, a little white icon with more direct access to the status report. So that would address Thomas's idea that the status report should be more accessible. And then, when Drupal Getting 3 comes along, we'll add the little red circle and make it more visible. So we're getting close to the end of the hour. I think we've made some progress in turning an overall negative impression into some actionable suggestions. Any other ideas anyone would like to bring up?
Not for me.
Okay. As long as we do have a few minutes left, let me just mention my pet issue. Recently got fixed. Yay! This is something we've talked about before at these meetings. So we now have, and this is an actual screenshot from a site where the patch was applied. So the issue is now fixed. You can now see this in core, a permissions page just for the content moderation and the workflows module. So that's now in core. This is issue 32163 4.1. And there are a bunch of related issues, many of which I added recently. And there's one in particular that I wanted to suggest. Here we go. And this is another issue we've talked about previously in these meetings, 2934995. So this had a suggestion that when you add, say, a custom block type, there are related permissions that get created. And this animated GIF or GIF suggests adding the permissions section in a sort of collapsible or hideable section on this page. But you know, my suggestion is that instead of putting it on the same page, add a permissions tab. So when you're editing a custom block type or content type, you already have several tabs: edit, manage fields, manage form display, manage display. Why not add one more tab, manage permissions, showing just the permissions related to this block type or content type? And that's something that I think is very easy to implement now that the module specific permission form has gone in. So so thank you. That's my pet issue that I'm really excited about finally getting fixed, and will be available when 9.3.0 is released in December.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, so unless there are any other parting shots, I guess that's it for this week's meeting, and we'll do it again next week. Thank you all for attending. And again, because of my particular Zoom hell, if you could all just post a quick comment in the UX Slack channel, that'll help me keep track of who was at the meeting this week.
Yep, sorry, I'll do that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.